Hello, welcome to another episode of the Infinity Stone podcast. As always, I am Matt, and this week we are discussing two movies. One that deals with the legacies of imperialism, and we're also talking about Black Panther. But before we talk about Thor, Ragnarok, and Black Panther, we got some trivia. So, are you ready for trivia, Andy?
I normally am, but we did things a little different this week. Normally, it's either his mother or his aunt helping him with these questions.
Okay.
But we got rid of the kids today, the last day of our vacation, and his uncle helped him. So apparently, it's pretty tough this week, Matt.
So we're really going to
You have
suffer then.
easier questions. He has the nearly impossible questions.
Oh,
You also have hard questions, but you.
So step our
Fair
game
enough.
up, which is good because we've been really amazing at these of late.
Yeah.
Matt, there's a Star Wars one.
That makes no sense.
Okay.
All right.
I know.
I mean, maybe for Homecoming would have made sense. Who are you asking first?
I'm asking Matt.
Matt.
Okay.
Name M'Baku's tribe.
He's the Jabari tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was way simple.
Build them up, right? Build them up, and then we look, and then we feel really good about
Here's my
ourselves.
question.
What is the Wakandian? What is the Wakandian King's Guard called?
They are the Dora Milaje.
Right. What does the Grand Master?
So who's this for?
Matt.
Okay.
What does this Grand Master prefer his slaves to be called?
Oh God. Yeah, it's on tip of my tongue. It's workers who don't get paid.
I think it's the people who don't get paid. Well, I think it's workers that don't get paid. That sounds about right. Actually, for the most part, he just prefers them not to be called slaves.
Right.
And then his
Right. Why would he object to the word? Yeah.
But he's not giving you the correct signal. Is that
No.
Yeah.
the workers who aren't paid? Okay, what are you saying? Because I think we're both right here, Matt.
Prisoners with jobs.
Prisoners
with jobs. That's it.
Can
That's it.
I like ramen out?
Doesn't he want to stay for this? This is
No,
quite the
he's
intense.
scratching.
Yeah, for tonight, he is not Gromit. He is Fenris. All right, let him up. That's one of the questions in trivia, I'm guessing, by the reaction he just gave me in his face. Hopefully that's my next question.
Rabbit.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, what's my question? The answer is Fenris.
Yeah.
What is the name of Hela's dog? Fenris, which is an adaptation of the Nordic name Fenrir.
Okay. How much points does Matt have?
I have one. Andy has two. So
Apparently
this
I
one,
have two.
because that was Fenris.
I didn't actually look at the questions, although I will say that I mean I knew it was Fenris anyway because of, I've read these and all that, but I did double check it today because I'm like, that feels like a question you might ask.
I also thought that would be a question, but yeah.
All right, this is it.
Tiebreaker.
This is one worth 2 points, I guess.
Yeah.
I have two since you're not gonna get. Name all of the champions whose faces showed up on the Grandmaster's Tower.
I mean, I only know Beta Ray Bill, and the Hulk was being built as they were leaving.
The Hulk was up there, but yeah, I don't know. I cannot name all of them.
Was there a Groot? But not Groot. Well, Groot is the only Groot. All right, well, let us know. I didn't know the other ones even had names.
Beta Ray Bill, Ares, Man-Thing.
Man-Thing was on there?
Yeah.
What was the last one?
Ill Beast.
Ill Beast. And what was the one before Sim again? So Beta Ray Bill, who?
Ares.
Ares. I wonder, is that the cat one? You don't know. You just looked this up. All right. Well, I mean, I got Beta Ray Bill. I feel like I should get. I got the most.
You got
correct
no
answers.
points.
Yeah,
And
no,
this
he
is
said
last
all
one.
of them.
That
Okay.
is totally off topic. Since my Uncle Billy thrown it in.
We like to stay on topic on this podcast.
I know.
No, we never stray off topic.
2 points.
Unless it's NBA discussion. All right.
Whose apology does Vader accept in Empire Strikes Back?
Whose apology does Vader accept in Empire Strikes Back?
I don't know. I mean, I don't watch those movies that much. I've seen it only a dozen or so times, maybe 2.
No, it's again, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can picture the scene. Oh, what's his name?
It's not that useless ass Boba Fett, is it? The guy who basically leans against walls and gets eaten by giant worms.
That's basically what he does.
All right, give us the answer and then get out of here.
No.
It's General something. I can't remember his name.
General Tarkov. I don't know. Is that
that's Grand Moff Tarkov, and he's in the first movie. No, it's your ego's your apologies accepted, and then he kills the guy.
Then he kills him with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Empire dude.
Captain Nada.
Sorry,
Okay.
wrong kind of nerdery. I'll tell you who Fenris is. I can tell you the actors who played different people in Black Panther, but I ain't got nothing. All right, I win because I am the champion, my friends. All right, Alexander, what did you think of this week's movies?
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, these ones are great. Great movies. Better than that Empire Strikes Back. Who's ever watched that? So obscure.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe you should start your homework right now and figure out what our questions are for next week, because these ones were easy for me. I mean, I could figure out what they were before you even read.
Next week is Infinity War.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have the DVD.
We have the Blu-ray. We're much better than those DVD people.
Well,
and something I'm most proud of. It's my Korg.
Oh yes. I got you that for your birthday this year. That was very good. All right, buddy. See you later.
And when we come back, we'll be talking about Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, that's intense. You know, to be honest, seeing you grow really big and set fire to a planet would be quite the spectacle. But it looks like I'm going to have to choose option B, where I bust out of these chains, knock that tiara off your head, and stash it away in Asgard's vault.
You cannot stop Ragnarok. Why fight it?
Because that's what heroes do. Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't time that right.
And we're back, and we're here to talk about Thor Ragnarok. So, the question I usually ask is, Andy, what did you think of this movie? But the question I'm going to ask this time is, Andy, how much do you think I love this movie?
I got to say this one's probably one of your favorites, just based on, I mean, for one, discussions you and I have had previously. We did not just meet, but also just everything we've discussed up until this point. I think this one is pushing all the right buttons for you. Am I right?
You are correct.
Another victory.
Yes, you're on a roll with your correct answers tonight. No, yeah, I love this movie. I love it a lot. I get a real thrill watching it, and I'm not going to spoil exactly where it is on my list. But yeah, it's up there.
And why do you love this movie?
Because it is. I think it leans into the stuff that worked well in the first Thor, where he's funny and it has fun with that, but also like the action scenes kick so much butt. And we'll talk more about that a bit, because like I actually do want to talk about that. But I think that they changed director again. I think Thor might be the only Marvel franchise with 3 different directors over 3 different films.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. And they brought in Taika Waititi, who is known for being kind of offbeat and silly. Would you think those are good descriptors of him?
Yeah, it is. It was an unusual choice for, big blockbuster film.
Yeah, but he just so nails it. And, so one question I have for you is, do you think that the way he treats this movie is too irreverent or the perfect amount?
It's just so hard to answer, because what's great about this movie is his irreverence, just the humor about it. And, this was a character in a franchise in desperate need of a refresh, coming off of what, many, including yourself, think is the worst movie in the entire franchise, Thor the Dark World. I might not think it's worse, but really I might also think it's the worst. It's really, there's not much separating. It's pretty bad. And even like the Thor, for original Thor, which you and I actually were pleasantly surprised by, wasn't one of the biggest received ones of even the early goings of that. So this was certainly, one they'd already, given the film a name. They had already, booked it on the schedule. They were going to do a third Thor. Why not try something different? And what they got is something very fresh and fun. And it is so rewatchable. It is just so easily watchable. I've seen it many times. Anytime, if I'd want to discuss it, my wife and my son will definitely say, yeah, let's watch Thor Ragnarok. Even, Christopher will sit still for large portions of this because it is fast paced. It is funny. Yeah. But I will say there are times when it might go too far. And that's because the thing is, what I love about it is the irreverence, but then it's just like, maybe there was just one or two times when the balancing act, they stumbled, and, we'll get into that.
Yeah. So I would say that there were, I think, two occasions where I noticed they stepped on a heavy moment with kind of a silly joke. And while I think that has its place in certain things, I also think you have to let those moments breathe sometimes. And I think this was a bit of or your complaint with Guardians 2. And I don't think I really disagreed with it. But I think it's definitely true in this movie too, where they don't really let an emotion land a lot of the time because they have to follow up with that joke.
Yeah, so it leaves me in a weird spot because I do love watching this movie. It is so much fun. And that's the main goal. That's what it's trying to do. And in that, it succeeds. When I'm watching it, this is a fun thrill ride. When I'm done, it was great. But then just a few things bug me. And yeah, there's especially probably just a few moments where it's just like let a few things sit, man. Like be irreverent throughout, but then, or here's the alternative. If you don't want to, if, we're making the silly Thor movie and we're going to have, poke fun at the silly cosmic stuff. That's cool too. Then don't have the big, emotional moments. But this movie tried to do both. And I almost wonder if it's, and I didn't bother to look this up or anything. I wonder if Thor Ragnarok, was already out there. The idea that there was going to be a movie called Thor Ragnarok had been put out years before Taika Waititi was ever hired. So it's like, okay, well, I got to do some kind of Ragnarok-y thing. And there's the various stories in, both Marvel Comics and the nature of Norse mythology, but he didn't really want to do those things. So maybe that's why, when Asgard blows up, they can't let that sit for like 20 seconds without, Korg making a joke. When Odin dies, they have to all right, we're moving on. Just, maybe,
Though I actually think, they do move on from Odin pretty quick, but I think they do a good job of dealing with it later, where it's the type of thing where they don't give him time to process it then, but I think they give him moments later where he does struggle to process that. When he's, in the prison with Korg, he, laments kind of like the insanity of the past, 2 days, I think it was at that point. Mm-hmm. At the end, his whole breakthrough moment at the end there is him, talking to his father there, realizing, that that according to his father, he's more than what he thought he was. He's not the god of hammers. Mm-hmm. Which, I have a flaw in this movie too, which I will say for that section, but I want to talk about something else I really love about this movie, which is it's not just that it's funny, but I really love the characters in this movie.
Yes.
And, what this movie did, it basically threw out every supporting character that had appeared in the past movies, except for Loki. And then it added one that Thor had interacted with, of course, in Avengers and the Hulk. But pretty much everyone else is new.
Other than Heimdall. Heimdall would be the other one, but yes.
Yeah, Heimdall would be the other one. But they, they kill off the Warriors 3 real quick. Sif is nowhere to be seen. Odin's dead very early on. And the Earth, his Earth compatriots are not in the movie at all, and instead we have Valkyrie, who I think most people would agree is a welcome addition to the universe. We get Korg, everyone's favorite soft talking rock man, and it's basically
the Grandmaster.
Right, and the Grandmaster,
Jeff Goldbluming all over the place.
Who's just swishing around in a robe. And it's like all of those additions are great. You can quibble with whether or not they should have gotten rid of some of the other people, but the additions, I don't think anyone would dispute, are not great.
Yeah, no, this is uniformly a great cast up and down. They all buy into what Taika is doing.
Yeah.
Like we haven't talked about the villain yet, but Cate Blanchett is amazing. And I mean, frankly, I was sold on this movie just when they released a still of not even a still, a sketch as a production design of like, this is how we're gonna do Hela, and it's just the insane headpiece, and I'm like, yes, okay. I before I didn't care at all about another Thor movie after the last one. Well, not care at all is an exaggeration. Of course I was gonna go see it, but I saw that, it's like, oh man, they're going for it, and man, did they ever really go for it. And they had a cast willing to go for it with them.
Yeah, what I love about Hela is when she first appears, she immediately destroys Thor's hammer and then reveals that insane headpiece as if to say, Loki, your helmet only has 2 horns. Mine has like 12. You know, like, come on now. Like, and I love like, like this is so like inside, but I love like the internet culture that just popped up around this movie. Like the whole like Tumblr thing about Thor being the jock middle child in a family of goths, or the fact that like the snake story, which is just just such a funny little moment, it like gets like put up on Tumblr and people don't realize it's an actual quote from the movie. Like this movie, it's just so enjoyable, and I think it doesn't skimp on the cool action for the funny.
No, and frankly, if you like, the easiest way for them to make the action as cool is play Led Zeppelin behind it, and they do that, and they do that twice. Because if finally get permission to use Immigrant Song, you don't just waste it once. You go twice, and I'm all in favor of that. Yeah,
you're stealing my bit right now.
Sorry. But like even my 5-year-old kid, once that starts playing, he's like, yeah, because you can't not get psyched while that music is pumping through your veins.
That's right. No, I mean, it's great. I mean, even Doctor Strange is funny in this movie. Like his like 5 minutes in this movie is better than is like more, I think, more enjoyable as a character to watch. Not necessarily more enjoyable than the entirety of his movie, but as a character, he comes alive in a way that I feel like he struggled to in his own movie. Yeah,
and obviously some of that is because now he's a little more comfortable in the role and yada yada. But also, I do think Taika's approach, like, he obviously is kind of playing fast and loose with past characterizations.
Yeah,
a lot of that is because, as we discussed with the huge misstep of the Dark World, is Marvel looked and it's like, no. When he's just being funny, this guy's really good at it. So let's just do that, which was A+. Like, I want to make it clear, I really like this movie. In fact, like, and I said, I love watching it. There's just a few things holding me back from fully loving it. And if Taika makes like 5 more Marvel movies, I'm all on board, because I think that he could only get better in that, because like he's already there with like his approach of fun and humor, which is so important for these movies, is fun. I think you and I have both been very consistent with that. I just I think the balance just again, probably like, as you say, 3 or 4 times maybe, and those things just gnaw at me a bit. But so even with somebody like Doctor Strange, and just it's not like Doctor Strange himself is funny. They just find ways to find the humor in the situation by playing off of Thor, by having Loki falling around, by him just completely dismissive of these people. They use his arrogance as more helpfully than they did in his own movie.
Right. Well, and here's the thing: when you're the hero of your own movie, they don't want to make you into a giant dick, because it's because then you don't root for the hero. But when you're a supporting player, then lean into it, because you're just there for 5 minutes. So should we go to break and come back, talk about our favorite scenes? Let's do it.
Yes! I have to get off this planet. Hey, where are you going? Hey! We know each other. He's a friend from work.
And we're back, and we're talking about our favorite scenes. Andy, I'm going first here because we already talked about it a little bit. But my favorite scene is, it's the immigrant song scene, man. When that drop
Which one?
hits, the second one. So the first one's good. The first one with Surtur is good. But the second one, I can watch just over and over and over again. And it's because there's like every character he focuses on has like this little awesome moment. So the iconic shot is when it comes on and you see like, the skeleton army kind of piling up towards Thor and like arcing towards him like a wave almost. That's almost like very like Sam Raimi Evil Dead like iconography there, only like much cooler than that. And that's like such an awesome shot. But then like you get Valkyrie just boozily strutting off her ship. You get
the fireworks coming out.
Yeah, with the party barge fireworks, blasting up behind. You get Hulk doing the reverse body slam of Fenris. I mean, come on, how great is that? Like, if you had Hulk and you had a giant wolf in the movie, you want to see them fight each other. And then, of course, Loki gets his moment. And what does he do at the end of it? He flips his helmet for no damn reason. Like, yeah. I love that. That little helmet flip is just like, that is so perfect.
Yeah, and that's just in that little moment, it just shows the strength of this movie is that, yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's cool. And that's what's important. And anybody's like, why would you flip it? Because it's cool. That's why. Because we're viewers of a movie and we like to see things and go, F yeah. And
I mean, it's also so perfectly Loki, who is like, whenever he does something, he is like very self-satisfied about it. Like Loki appreciates himself more than anyone else appreciates himself. And that little helmet flip is him being like, yeah, I just killed that guy.
And, it is important in this because what most people talk about for good reason in this movie is just, how funny it is and how irreverent and all that. But yeah, no, he doesn't skimp on the action, He still remembers that when it's time, we're going to, show some kick-ass space Viking violence. And, that's where it comes down. And that's what's important because, we go to these movies and we want that feeling. Yeah. And it's not just the song. The song is perfect.
I mean, the song's perfect.
Deployed. But, if you've been on the internet, you've seen that they've also set the scene to Holding Out for a Hero, and it works perfectly there, too.
In some ways, it works even better to that, which is amazing. But no, I mean, it's like, and as you said earlier, if you have Immigrant Song, you're not just going to use it once because you paid a lot for that song. So I just love that. And then I just love how when it ends and they're all facing off against Hela, Loki's like, well, just hit her with another lightning blast. And I just hit her with the largest lightning blast in the history of lightning.
Yeah, I'm not doing Get Help. No, the whole thing, the battle on the bridge is just, that's just pure adrenaline. Yeah. It's awesome. It also features a callback to one of the greatest moments in comics ever with the Executioner, which the movie can't do as well as the comic book does. But as somebody who read it, it's like, at least we got to see that, we got to see him with the machine guns going. So for my best sequence, I'm going with the fight in the arena.
Okay, so yeah, I figured that's where you would go.
Yeah, and honestly, it really goes to the first time I watched the trailer, and just you can just condense it into one moment of when Goldblum is Goldbluming it up at the introduction. The Hulk comes out as big and intense, and then it's actually kind of funny because this seems to counter the one problem I had because this totally steps on the drama of all of that with him just yelling out, "Yes!"
Right,
but that's perfectly deployed. That's exactly where it's at. And just in that little undercutting, that shows you're like, this is going to be fun. And, just when you see that in a trailer, I saw that moment. I'm like, sold. I need to go right now. I'm looking forward to this movie more than not only did I ever expect a Thor, but more than any movie ever, because it's just like, it's so funny. I know him. He's a friend from work. It's just like that right there tells you everything you're going to need to know going into this movie. And then, as it plays out itself, the whole arena battle is, just lots of fun. Trying to put the Hulk to sleep, getting bashed around. It's great stuff.
And I also, one of my favorite parts of the arena battle is Loki's reactions because they're perfect. One, when the Hulk first comes in, he's like mad because he's like,
He's
I
not
wanted to
mad.
see.
He's terrified. He's like,
Right.
I gotta get out of here because
Right.
he remembers. what the Hulk
Right.
did to him.
But then when the Hulk slams Thor around, he's like, yes, that's how it feels. That's how it feels.
Yeah, so I can watch that scene over and over and over
No,
again, and like it
I-
itself, like I totally agree. The bridge scene was one of my considerations, but it just condenses everything that's great about this movie into one moment, including
Except
Hulk.
Except the one thing the arena battle doesn't have is Immigrant Song.
That would, and honestly, probably rightly so. It would have been, I think, twice as perfect, especially because it harkens back to the earlier display of heroism against Searcher. 3 times would be like, yeah, okay. But yeah, like, and it includes the Hulk Thor dynamic, which powers this movie really well, and is another example of how Marvel has figured out Hulk. They've figured out how to use the Hulk and how to deploy him. And what's weird is that they've done in this movie by turning him and Banner into a comedic character, which still works. I don't care if there's some complaints about it. I think it works great.
I think it's interesting because I think what they do is it's not just that he's comedic, but like the Hulk seems a little different as like he's like matured a bit, but not in the good way. The Hulk in this movie is kind of like a petulant teenager. Whereas before he was a willful child. It's almost like what the Guardians movies are doing with Groot in a way. And it's, like I feel like there is a different, it's like it's obviously a more articulate Hulk because he's been Hulk for a lot longer. But I also think just like the way he acts is like very much kind of that like, like moody teenager in a lot of ways. But I like the fact that it harkens back to the fact that Thor and the Hulk have always had a quasi rivalry because they are these two strongest. That's embodied when they get on
strongest
the
Avenger.
Right, yeah. But Thor wasn't. He was Point Break. So no, I mean, yeah, but I was about to mention that. So,
hey, what do we think about the kind of the 80s style trappings of like the design and the music? And
I love it so much. I love it so much. It's so perfect. I love like the synthesizers. I love when they get to Sakaar. They have very softly playing Pure Imagination as they do the tour. I love but the way like the synth works on like. When they get the Sakaar and just like throughout where it's, it has that like little buzz to it. It's perfectly 80s. And for some reason, I feel like 80s trappings are great for Thor because like, I don't know. There's just some reason I feel like that aesthetic is like perfect for him.
Well, in part because, Thor is very metal and the 80s is when metal was at its most prominent in pop culture. It's always kind of like a subgenre for only small people, but then there was the hair metal era.
I was gonna say I think Thor is very hair metal. I don't know if he's very I would say he like almost is more of that.
Almost all of metal takes their cues from Norse mythology, so I would say he's actually kind of metal.
That's fair.
But I think also just Marvel space in general often plays with that aesthetic, right? I mean, that's all of Star-Lord's, references and all that. And that really works because probably one of the biggest, eras for space movies, for space opera, again, was the 80s. Star Wars came out, made a bunch of money, and everybody's like, let's do that. And then, you got to see it all the time, and it was a big part of pop culture. So it kind of feeds into that nostalgia loop that when we see these movies with that aesthetic, that reminds us of a time when, we used to always, that's what space was. The idea of space in probably a lot of the viewers' minds, whether they, are the boomers that grew up with it or the Gen Xers that grew up with it, or, millennials who've had that refed to them, is what 80s thought the future was like. And that's kind of the aesthetic that Marvel, Cosmic has brought out. Plus, I think we all recognize that the 80s was a little ridiculous in some eras, and the ridiculousness of the Cosmic Marvel, both cinematically and just in general, like they get some crazy stuff going in there that they always have. And what they do, instead of trying to make it more realistic, is no, it's just gonna be ridiculous, and no, don't worry, you won't worry about it too much because we'll make it seem kind of 80s and funny.
Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Do you want to talk about flaws? Because I feel like you got something you want to talk about here.
Well, so this obviously is the argument that I already made in the earlier section, just the times that they step on it, and you brought it up. It always bothers me how easily and disdainfully that they wipe out the Warriors 3. And I know that they never made a big impression in their earlier cinematic things. I doubt there's a ton of, I mean, frankly, a lot of the viewers of Thor Ragnarok never even bothered to watch the earlier movies. But even if you had, I don't know if they made a big thing. But I think I've always personally have an issue when movies just, or not just movies, when continuous stories just casually kill off characters. I don't really like it.
So I have less of a problem with killing off characters and more kind of the way they did it here. Yes. I will say there's a big difference between how they killed off Hogan to me and how they killed off Volstagg, and I'm forgetting the third one, Fandral. Remembered it. They kill off Volstagg and Fandral like that. Like they're barely in the scene and they're dead. But Hogan at least kind of gets a scene. He
goes out like a G. I actually don't have any problem. If you're going to have to kill them off, you don't really have plans on using them again, which I'll talk about in a bit. Okay. Like he fought and he was overmatched, just like Thor was overmatched. It's a great way of showing the power of this new villain. Yes. But those other two is just like red shirts have had more dignity with the way these guys were killed off, and it's like I'm guessing obviously there's probably scheduling issues. They could only get Zachary Levi and Ray Stevenson in certain parts. Maybe they would have preferred to kill the Warriors 3 in that circle, but they couldn't get them. Then don't use them. Honestly, it would have just been easier.
I mean, they didn't use Jamie Alexander and
because she wasn't available. That's it. They tried, and she's got her NBC show. She couldn't make it, and I'm very happy for that, because they would have just. And she, I think, actually was a character that made some level of impact with the earlier two movies. But I still think they would have just killed her off like it was nothing. And it's like it just was unnecessary. All that does, again, Hogan, that helps establish this villain as a real, true threat. It's not just tearing through these faceless with the helmet soldiers, which we also saw dwarves tear through like they were nothing. This is somebody you recognize being killed. So I get the story purposes for that, but I think if you're not going to use them, just a line of dialogue would have done it. All it would have taken is Scourge being telling Thor the one guy is on the run and these guys and the Warriors 3 are in exile. Boom. And then you don't have to bring them up, because one thing, now they're dead. And now that Taika Waititi has created a Thor that everybody loves, and we definitely wanted a Thor 4, and I bet we're going to get one. You can't tell me that Volstagg wouldn't be great in a Taika Waititi movie.
Yeah, he would fit a lot better to a Taika Waititi movie, especially because his entire aesthetic was kind of already bending in that direction. Yeah.
So just by casually doing it and killing those two off that way, all you can possibly hope to achieve in that moment is kind of pissing off fans. Because normal people don't care, right? Just a normal viewing movie watcher don't care. They're not upset that the Warriors 3 were killed, but they also, don't care that they were killed. You're not getting any juice from that. So all you can do is upset people who may have some level of attachment. Admittedly, it comes from other sources, but I mean, obviously, and Marvel knows that they have a big fan base of people coming from other sources. So, and it is also just kind of, and I guess the other thing is if their deaths were ever acknowledged, maybe it would be okay. Just when they're witnessing the destruction of Asgard, and then we can't feel it. So if you're gonna kill people, make it mean something. Otherwise, just don't do it. That's my kind of How about you?
So my criticism, I guess flaw in the movie is a little more abstract, but I will take my time to engage in it, since I made it kind of a joke about it up at the top of this. So hidden in this movie, or perhaps not even that hidden, is kind of an anti-imperialist message. This movie is all about how, Hela's entire philosophy is we raged across the cosmos, we brought back their riches, we plundered them, and now we're trying to whitewash our past, which is, it has its real world equivalents. Let's just put it that way. But besides the fact they say this, he never really engages it. And I think the reason why he doesn't engage it is because that idea and kind of that villain motivation doesn't match what Thor's journey is in this movie. I think Thor's journey in this movie is actually pretty clear. It's, realizing that his power comes from himself and that he doesn't need the hammer, which I'll talk about that in a moment, because I also want to bring that up for a second. But that has like nothing to, that really doesn't impact, that doesn't have a conversation with this entire idea, this anti-imperialist idea, like what Hela's doing. So Hela, while she's prancing around and is a lot of fun, like they don't actually seem like a good hero villain match in this movie. And like him defeating her, I mean, again, he doesn't really defeat her, doesn't do a lot for me, because there's like no real reason to fight her other than the fact that like she's there, she's taken over, so I have to fight her. But I don't think there's an interesting conversation that arises there from the ideas that the journeys they're on in this movie.
Yeah, it's almost like they feel like, well, we got to give this villain some motivation.
Right.
So they give some backstory of how, she was imprisoned and that sucks and all that. And, nobody cares. Nobody knows me. But then it's like, yeah, but then in the end, she's just going to, and I'm going to go kill a bunch of, realms, just like Loki in the first movie. Like in the end, It was still like, we just have to stop bad guy from destroying everything. And to be clear, I don't necessarily mind if the villain is only like, I'm going to do something, really bad, and the hero has to stop them, because I mostly care about what the hero's going through. But yeah, I do think like, it's like they gave her this motivation, but that doesn't really inform her actions that much.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think that's where my criticism of the movie would come in, but it's not the type of flaw that like I notice when I'm watching. When I'm watching, I don't care about it at all. And then the other thing I would mention, which I briefly mentioned, is the fact that this movie has a bit of an Iron Man 3 syndrome, where everything that Thor goes through is like walked immediately back upon the next Avengers movie.
Yeah, to the point where there's a question to be asked, and it's probably better after Infinity War, but I doubt we'll get to it then, is would everything have been better if Thor did nothing about Hela?
I think it kind of opened the door for Thanos. Let's put it that way. So
yeah, at the very least, I think she could have put up a fight, and that would have, something. So again, we don't want to, because people watching,
we don't want to step on that.
Gotten to Infinity War, but yes, I do believe from the very first scene of the next movie, and in fact, the end credit scene this begins it. It's like his great victory, his great learning of Asgard is our people and all of that. Man, that sucked. Not so much that. Yep. And I believe that ties into a hammer thought you had. You said you had something more to say about his hammer and how his powers doesn't derive from his hammer.
Oh, no, that wasn't. The fact that, his powers derive from himself. And as I said, like they walk everything back, like all of his growth back in the next movie, including the fact that they immediately replace his hammer with an axe.
Yeah.
So like, what's even the point then?
And I gotta say,
that
the
journey.
way that they, kind of undo most of this movie, or at least make a lot of this movie end up feeling like, not pointless is the wrong word, but is it Pyrrhic victory maybe, or just like you won this, but then you're still gonna lose.
That could be a Pyrrhic victory. Yeah. So.
Shows that they kind of let Taika do his thing here. They let him tell a story, and it's like, you don't have to conform your whole story to what we're gonna do next. Do what you're gonna do, and then we're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Exactly like Iron Man 3. So, but I
think what the bigger issue, why it's more of a problem with Iron Man 3. Well, first off, it isn't as fun a movie as this is, but right. I think also is like Iron Man 3 seemed to be setting up something that always felt pointless. Why? It was like trying to set up the end of Iron Man when we knew the end of Iron Man wasn't happening. Whereas, this was a worthy goal that Thor was pursuing. It just ended up not working out because.
I mean, like I also feel like they could have preserved at least the personal growth in this one, but they just were like, no, Thor needs a weapon. He needs I guess an axe. Let's do an axe.
Yeah.
So.
And also Thor needs to not be fighting Thanos the entire movie. We need to save him for the third act.
And he needs a new eye too.
They take that away too.
They take everything away. Had they just left something, it would have I would have less qualms.
He doesn't even keep his new friends.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
All right.
So
That's
we
enough.
have another whole movie to talk about. So should we
Let's
end
get
our
to it.
Thor discussion and get going to Black Panther?
Yes.
What's up? I never yielded! And as you can see, I am not dead! All that challenge shit is over with. I'm the king now.
And we're back, and we're here with a visit from the king himself, T'Challa, the Black Panther.
Where are you? There he is. Oh no, now we can't see anything. Ah, there you are. How's it going, Panther? Good. This is a very special Wakandan voice. I'm just going to get a little more light in here so everybody can see what's going on with you. You know, I don't know if anybody can see you, Christopher. Do you want to maybe at least let us see your eyes? How about if we do that? Oh, there you are. Well, some of your eyes anyway. Christopher, did you want to show us the Black Panther moves you've been working on? That's a yes. All right. Demonstration, please. How about first show us some of your special Panther moves? Agility like a cat, this one. All right. Oh, no, somebody's going to attack. Oh, no, please. Please show some mercy. No mercy. Is this your king? That was very good, buddy. As everyone can see, we're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel of our costumes, but the mask, very, very authentic. I remember when you got that for your birthday, and you were very excited. I actually felt bad for the other kids who you were only somewhat happy to get their gifts, and then also this is like, yes, exactly what I asked for. All right. You watched Black Panther with us, didn't you, this week?
Yep.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean a little long and then not enough cartoons, but still pretty cool. All right, what do you say to leave?
Wakanda forever.
Good night, buddy.
Good night.
Your reign is over. You set up here safe and protected. You want to see us become just like the people you hate so much. Divide and conquer the land as they did.
Nah, I learned from my enemies. Beat them at their own game.
You have become them. You will destroy the world, Wakanda included.
The world took everything away from me. Everything I ever loved. But I'm gonna make sure we're even. I'm gonna track down anyone who would even think about being loyal to you. And I'm gonna put their ass in the dirt right next to Zuri. Ah!
And we're back from our visit with the Black Panther to talk about the movie Black Panther. Andy, what do you think of this one?
Oh, it's really good. Great movie. This is actually only my second time of seeing it. And I do look forward to peeling back more layers through different viewing. But I think the strength of this movie is that Wakanda is just a fully realized place that feels different than anything else. And it's certainly anything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but even just in movies in general.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was surprised by on the second viewing was how much time they spent building up Wakanda and its history, and they really took a lot of time with it in the first hour of the movie, to the point where I watched an hour and I was like, Michael B. Jordan's been in like one scene so far. And of course, he then takes over the movie from that point on. But up until that point, a lot of the movie is dealing with Claw and alternately dealing with us getting to know Wakanda. And I would say that they probably invest more time in Wakanda and us getting to know that and all the politics and the backstory and history than in getting to know T'Challa, to a sense.
And maybe those they have a bit of a no origin story mandate coming forward, post Doctor Strange, and they'd already introduced him in Civil War and all that, and we kind of got the idea that you become this. It's been a thing for a while, but this is kind of the origin story of Wakanda is what they've done instead. And I actually think that little change, that little twist on that works really well, because I'm really interested in Wakanda as a place. Obviously, it's like this great mixture of all the different things we've kind of seen in the Marvel universe so far, with technology and mysticism and magic, basically, all kind of forming into one place with several different interesting people, and this can't be undersold, of the type that we don't get to see in major movies at all.
Yeah, and we'll probably talk a bit more about this later, but there is one thing I actually want to say about that and about Wakanda specifically, because, one thing everyone says if a movie's filmed in New York, like New York is a character in the movie, which is silly to the point of being completely meaningless. But Wakanda, is a character in the movie. Wakanda and kind of the world building, the setting there is a huge part of it. And one of the things I love about the world building here is you'll see this very often in speculative fiction, where if you go to a place with people that don't look like what we're used to seeing or reading about, i.e. not white, they're all the same. There's one culture for a city and that's it. But Wakanda has all these different cultures mixing together there. It has all these different peoples. You don't just, everyone's not just like T'Challa. In fact, T'Challa's kind of weird there. Everyone makes fun of him there. He's the uptight guy, which is a little touch that I absolutely love. The second he gets in Wakanda and everyone is just busting on him, great touch. But you have, but all the different tribes have different characteristics. They draw from different parts of Africa. The Jabari are very different from the other tribes. Wakanda is not this monolithic place. It is a diverse place, but that diversity is within it's still like a Black diversity, which I like about the movie, and I think is really interesting and great world building.
Yeah, and it shows that diversity isn't just a buzzword. It can be a real strength, not just from all the reasons. And we are going to talk about diversity because I can think of two better people to discuss the subject. But just it gives you new storytelling opportunities, right?
Yeah.
You see new things. It's even if they might have done this and because white people we get to be different things, right? We get to be the French one or the European or the American and all of that. But as you say, much of the viewing population for this movie, America and other countries, think of Africa as a country instead of a continent. But this movie, does not necessarily buy into that. Obviously, they have to take different pieces of different African things to create this fictional nation. But in doing so, it's not just one type of people, and that gives it a freshness. It's an excitement because Black Panther himself, there are very unique properties. He's also kind of an amalgamation of a lot of the characters that we've seen before, right? Yeah. He's got technology powers, maybe a little bit better. He's athletic and stuff like Captain America. He's we see him in this movie, shoot beams of energy out, rich. I think the big unique one is that he is a king, and so those touches are really nice that we get a lot of palace intrigue type story. That's what this the story is. But other than him, they're not that stuffy, right? As you say, they'll take little digs at him. He will let his guard down when he's around his people, his mother, his sister, his ex-girlfriend, love interest. Just by trying a new approach and a different kind of people, you can get a fresh new story without having to reinvent everything.
Yeah, and there's one other bit of world building that I read about that I want to bring up, which is the language they use for the main Wakandan language is it's based off of a specific African language, and it's adapted a bit. But the one they use for the Jabari tribe is actually based off a completely different one. And if you listen, they don't sound alike. They sound different. And that's because, again, it's representing the fact that this is not a monolith. There are differences here. And, they're celebrating those differences. And also, this movie's so stylish. This movie is just it's so cool. It is just it has this effortless cool about it. And it's great.
Yeah, and again, that's something you get when you can, find a new approach, a new group of people to focus on. It's it's a bunch of stuff that we haven't seen before. Some of it obviously created whole cloth for the movie, and some of it just adapted from things that they never bothered to film before. In a way that it's Tony Stark can't be that cool the same way because we already saw Bruce Wayne and we already saw all this, and we have hundreds and hundreds of movies that tell us what rich Playboy is like, to the part where a lot of it felt cliche in some case. Again, what the unique thing was Robert Downey Jr.'s take on it, but then others is like was embarrassing. Oh, cool, he's gonna sleep with a reporter because he's a man. Now this movie can just do things that are a little more fresh, dancing at the waterfalls. So just the constant rhythm that, of course, you and I would clap on the downbeats instead of that stuff feels exciting and new. When you see it on screen, when you hear it on screen, that is just like this movie is taking me somewhere new.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about this movie that's great is, man, this cast is so good. Like, we said this.
You get when you finally cast people that are never get cast in big movies. You have your pick, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, they get some absolute ringers in small roles. Like, I love the fact that, it's not just they have, like, Sterling K. Brown in, like, a flashback role, or Forrest Whitaker in, like, a role that has, like, a couple lines and gets killed off, or Angela Bassett in a role that, like, does very little, honestly. Yeah. But then you also have someone like Daniel Kaluuya, who just starred in one of the biggest movies of the previous year as like a tertiary character.
Yeah, and then they when this movie was being announced, they kept adding new additions to the cast. You and I and people might remember Emily from an earlier podcast. We would just like get on Slack. It's like, oh my God, they're casting this person. Like it was just stacks upon stacks of talent to the point where like I almost was like, did they waste Daniel Kaluuya? Like shouldn't maybe he be in another movie? But then you think, yeah, but then that's how you can load a cast with so much talent because nobody ever thinks to use that type of person in big blockbuster movies. There's only like one part in like 5 movies, right? It's like, okay, well, we got War Machine and it'll be a while till we get Falcon. And to give Marvel some level of credit, they've at least, showed a willingness to make Nick Fury black. Although that was an idea out of the comics. And
making Heimdall black, that wasn't in the comics.
Exactly. So like they found some places, but in terms of like starring role, it's like, I mean, that if we're waiting around for another movie for Sterling K. Brown, I don't know if the material exists. So why not use him here and make one awesome movie? And then it's not just, all of the ringers that they have in the cast, but then the 2 newcomers are fantastic. And Letitia Wright and Winston Duke.
Yes. Yeah, no, Winston Duke's so good. I love M'Baku. I love him so much.
So we just mentioned all these great casts, and they all just bring a lot to the role. And then that's topped by Michael B. Jordan, who might be giving one of the better performances in all of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I mean, and he completely steals the show to the point where every conversation about the movie after the movie is about his character. Like, people will like mention some other characters, but like every conversation revolves around him. And that's why I was so surprised when I watched the first hour of the movie and he was barely present. He had the one big scene in the museum and then he disappears. And he disappears through like the whole like Korea stuff and Claw's, chase there. And that's a very cool chase. Like that rocks. And then he appears again an hour in, he frees Claw. He gets into a dispute with, he kills him and then he takes over the second half of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, in both ways, right? I mean, obviously, the movie is about his takeover of Wakanda, but it's very much like his charisma outshines the others, and some of that is the skill of Michael B. Jordan. To the point where it's like, this is a great role and great usage. So you can never say it's wasted, but it's like, man, I would love to be watching 3 movies of Michael B. Jordan.
Well, and it's also a director who like knows everything good about him because again, like. Coogler, who had only directed, I think, 3 movies before this.
I don't think
maybe
it's
2.
3. It's
Fruitvale Station. It's Creed. I thought there was a 3rd one, but I couldn't remember.
I think it's just these. Yeah, I think this is
right. But if it's only those 2, and this was the 3rd, well, the star of the first 2 was Michael B. Jordan. So those 2 know each other well.
Yeah, and I like clear, like he is electric, and it's a part that you can tear into, right? It is a very charismatic role, and he delivers it, and to the point where, as you say, a lot of the conversation was dominated by him. We will be discussing it later, and we'll discuss it again now. As a lot of people was like, finally, Marvel solved their villain problem. This is what you need to do. They finally have a great villain, and absolutely they do. Killmonger is a great villain with a clear motivation and a sympathetic motivation to some extent. And that's the thing we'll talk about later. But the problem is he's not going to be around anymore. And it's just like, it was very much like, this is what they used to do with the Joker and Batman movies, is your best, greatest part is given to the villain. And man, that kind of sucks for the hero.
Yeah, no, and it's true, because it's kind of like, when they make a Black Panther sequel, because they absolutely will. It is one of the biggest movies ever. In some ways, I'm a little less excited because they killed Killmonger, and he was such a big part of why this movie was great. Now, I still like a lot of the other characters here, and I think they're going to be able to do them right. But honestly, like the character I might like the least in this cast is the titular hero. And I feel like they probably need to do some work building him up more in the future.
Yeah, I mean, least is probably a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, he is not as interesting and did not get the heat of not only Killmonger but of Shuri, but of M'Baku.
Okoye, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. And so it's just like, for one movie, and Black Panther very much, and for very many reasons, sold out hard to make this the movie, and good for them. That's don't hold anything back. Give it all. It worked great, but for people to be like to retroactively criticize all of Marvel's choices based on it, it's like, nah, man, there's a reason why you love Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans, and why they could turn a third Thor movie into the one, because they still had some capital with Thor, and they didn't just use it all on Loki, who is another one they actually had built up. But it's just like, because they've invested in heroes. And this one, I kind of feel like T'Challa gets a bit of the short end of the stick in this movie.
I think so too. So you know what? Let's go to break, and let's come back and talk about our favorite scenes.
I lived my entire life waiting for this moment. I trained, I lied, I killed, just to get here. I killed in America, Afghanistan, Iraq. I took life from my own brothers and sisters right here on this continent. And all this death, just so I could kill you.
And we're back, and we're talking about our favorite sequences. Andy, what do you got for me here?
For me, it's when Killmonger goes on his spirit journey, and we get that scene between him and his father, played by Sterling K. Brown. And, for me, obviously, I've many times have been talking about the great action sequences, and this movie does have a few, but few moments in all of Marvel have had that same emotional appeal, and part of it is just simple. They have two great performances at the performers at the height of their powers, just talking to each other.
Yeah, I love that scene. That was one of my choices too. I feel like I think it really does a great job of just painting in not Killmonger's like motivations as a ruler, or motivations that he espouses, but where he's coming from as a person. Like, that's what that scene does. Just like when T'Challa had his heart to heart with his father, like that painted a lot of his hopes and dreams as a person rather than as a ruler. This one informs us that Killmonger is still stuck in that moment. Yeah. He's never left that moment.
Yeah, whether or not you agree with Killmonger's motivations, and we will get into that shortly, that movie shows you where it's coming from, and it's coming from his pain. Everything in this movie is Killmonger acting out his pain. Every scar on his body, every person he's killed was, in that moment. And that's why, of course, that the spirit brings him to that moment. And I also just love the touch that, for him, it's not an African Serengeti. It's not, the great, tree of panthers. It's not the panther god at all. Although we still get the touches of the sky to let us know what's going on. And the purple, sunset of, the earlier scene in that is just a beautiful effect. But that this is his spirit home is back in Oakland. And just, and we talked, I believe, last week about how the daddy issue, 2 weeks ago, about the daddy issues of Guardians 2 not working for us at all. Yeah, here's daddy issues done right.
Oh yeah, definitely. I completely agree. Yeah, here's daddy issues on both characters. I think to the extent that T'Challa does work, it's with the fact that he's grappling with the sins of his father. It's that is a potent storyline where you learn that your father is not as good as you thought he was. I think everyone growing up learns their parents are not quite as perfect as we may have thought when we were young. And I hope your children don't listen to this so they find that out about you, Andy.
They only listen to the parts they're in, man.
I know. Yeah.
How about you? What was your best part?
So I had a really tough time choosing. I had it narrowed down to a couple scenes. That was one of them. I think the one that I'm going to go with is what I like to call the break the retainer moment. It's Killmonger's the first challenge fight where he beats him, and I think one of the things that drew me to the scenes that I was debating between, because it's that one, it's him in the throne room when he first reveals who he is, and then it's hi auntie, and then my name is, and he's declaiming in that one, and then the last one was his death. And the reason why that I like all those scenes is, yes, the fight scene had some action, but I really love, this is when we get to see like the raw emotion that Michael B. Jordan is training in, and that makes this movie so compelling. These are the moments, and that's true of your scene too. I feel like the best scenes of this movie, the most compelling scenes of this movie, are when he is this angry boy who's yelling out at the world, and yet, as he's doing it, he's threatening to bring down everything they had built up, and the consequences of this are just multiplying all over the place.
Yeah, and the other great scene about the fight at the falls is it is brutal. It does not hold back on the intensity of it all and builds to it. It is as physical a fight as there's been in any Marvel movie. The only comparable ones might be like Cap Bucky and Iron Man, or maybe some of the stuff from Winter Soldier. But yeah, no, it is intense, and I mean, Killmonger does beat him down pretty hard, to the point where because he doesn't listen, I can tell, like, this one had my son in tears in theaters. Like, it sold the moment enough that, like, the hero isn't actually dying in that moment,
right? But
just like the intensity, maybe you can get lost in it, especially if you're a 9-year-old boy, but also just you can get lost in the defeat of it all.
Right. And what I like about it, there's a couple things. I like the fact that T'Challa, in the throne room scene, which comes like basically right before this, he kind of understands what he's trying to do and is trying to head him off. But they use different methods. Like Killmonger is kind of straight ahead. He's right at you. Like, he's very in your face, and that's the character. He's confronting you with what you don't want to hear. Whereas T'Challa is trying to maneuver you to die. He's trying to maneuver you to where you can't do the things you want to do. I think it's just like, it's kind of like the tactician versus the, the bull rusher. But at the fight, there's a moment early on in the fight where T'Challa I don't think he fully appreciates Killmonger's resolve there, because he knocks him down and then he backs off and he yells like yield at him. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about here.
Yeah, he didn't know what kind of fight this was, and he paid a very heavy price for that. Absolutely. Killmonger was there to, kill. And and this harkens back to the earlier scene of the waterfall with M'Baku. In that, he did spare M'Baku. And, it should be noted, the movie does not sell out that decision. That is not, he loses the second one. And, it could be very easily then be viewed that, T'Challa is weak in that moment. I do believe certain people have taken that message for it, because people, can be drawn to the ass kicker more than the diplomacy. But Wakanda is saved and T'Challa's life is saved because of the mercy he showed M'Baku in that moment. And it's just like, it worked with M'Baku, so here I will try to still be kingly. And I think also probably because the tradition of the fight had to become more traditional than the fight to the death. But Killmonger wasn't here for any of that. He was here to burn it all down. And I will say what that scene actually does show for everybody who's like, yeah, but he lost though. Maybe ritual combat is not the ideal way of selecting a leader.
Maybe. I kind of feel like they might have run into poor leaders before through that method, but maybe it's more of a ceremonial type of thing usually. Though maybe it's a good way to select the Black Panther, who's your running around nation protector, which is kind of what they're really doing there.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe that's the other thing. It's like maybe your king doesn't need to be a warrior king as well. But I mean, who am I to say? Wakanda's done pretty well so far. It's interesting that like all your choices and mine were Michael B. Jordan choices instead of others. And that we can get into that in a moment. But I was like one non-Michael B. Jordan sequence. I wanted to talk about one non-Wakandan sequences. I do like the South Korea scenes.
Yeah, I do too. And I think I mentioned that when I brought them up briefly, but yeah.
And not just the action chase scene, but also just in the casino. And it also just shows another strength of this movie is even when they leave Wakanda for the rest of the world, they're going to go somewhere else that, non-white and is not something we are always seeing in films. It was a unique setting for that sequence. So this movie was very interested in like, let's see some more of the world and not just the Marvel world, but the world.
Yeah. And I also like Claw in the beginning of the movie. I feel like he's an interesting villain for the type of movie it's telling because there is, I don't know exactly what type of accent he was going for there, but I was going to say, it sounds South African. Yeah. Which is a very purposeful choice in a movie that is populated almost exclusively with Black people. And there is a visceral, thrill and enjoyment of seeing, the hero try to chase down a South African bad guy in this movie.
It just shows like what we said earlier of how they have this great cast and it's almost like a worry, not a worry, but it's like an embarrassment of riches of how much they had to work with. Claw would have been a great fill-in for an entire Black Panther movie. They never even made him fully superpowered like he has become in comics, and it even be like a great thematic fill-in in the ways you were saying. But this movie decided no, we can do one more. And they kill him off. He's done. They can't use him again. But again, they threw everything at this movie. There is no tomorrow unless this one works. And I think it's also, to the movie's credit that ultimately, we don't need the white guy as our bad guy. We could do better than that.
I agree. No, I agree entirely. So did you want to talk about any flaws? Does this movie have them?
I mean, so the one, that's, it's hard to even say it's a flaw. It's just that the way that Killmonger and Michael B. Jordan overshadow everything could end up being maybe a future problem. And but it can't be a flaw because it led to excellent things. So instead of that, I will just say the final battle between Killmonger and Black Panther, I don't think works as well for me. And part of it is because it's nowhere near as good as their simpler battle to begin with.
I think that's true. It's that might be like maybe my least favorite of like the action sequences in this movie. And I think it just doesn't have. You're right. I think it's because their battle at the falls is so much better.
Yeah, but it's like, they fight a little bit and then they get separated by a train and they fight a little bit. And then it's just like one stab, and it's like, and I feel like the CGI isn't working as well with the costumes coming in and out. It just feels a little unreal in a film that otherwise felt very grounded and intense, And I say like the rest of the battle raging on amongst the battle, the different tribes of Wakanda, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Like I'm not going to get upset at like battle rhinos, A+, that's good stuff. Even if you stop to ask like, why is he fighting his wife? Like, is he really that upset just because like on his first week as king he couldn't capture Claw? But whatever.
There's actually a really good scene. So I watched the deleted scenes because I got the Blu-ray, and there's actually a scene between W'Kabi and Okoye about like she basically calls him that. She's like, the only reason he got free from us was because that guy freed him, and he's like, I don't care. He killed him. That's all I asked. And, he didn't bring him to the CIA first. He didn't turn him over to the UN first. He killed him. And so, like, I kind of wish that was in the movie, because that's the one thing that annoyed me about W'Kabi. I'm like, dude, like, that's the dude that freed him. You would have.
On second watch, you kind of start to get a sense like, well, W'Kabi's a little more conservative about these things.
Yeah.
So that's also like the point where he delivers an anti-immigration message. So it actually does kind of fit in to the point where it's like like he's single-minded. This has been what he's about. He's a law and order type. About his. He's
the border guard, right? Yeah.
And he was already advocating like, let's just go out and tear stuff up if that's what we need to do. So it actually isn't as big a step for him to and I guess the tradition, like, he is the king. We're supposed to listen to the king, aren't we? But I agree that scene might have helped. How about you? Do you have any flaws you want to discuss?
I mean, basically what we talked about, though I guess I'll phrase it a different way. It's not that Michael B. Jordan is too good. It's that I just don't think this movie does a good enough job of building up T'Challa as the person that we really want to root for, which is, I think, and the reason why I can say that is because I feel like it did do that job with the secondary characters. Shuri, Okoye, Nakia, like they all get great moments. Like one of my favorite moments is Okoye stepping in front of the rhino at the end and just like it's stopping and licking her. I love that moment.
And that's a good example because Okoye is also a figure who isn't like funny and fun. And and you could say like almost like, T'Challa has the unfortunate, like he is
he's the straight man.
Yeah, he's the king. He has a lot more responsibility, so he can't, be as throwing off jokes here or there. Sure, he's not the outsider like M'Baku, but Okoye in her moments, she's even more straight laced than him. But she can find ways to make an impression. Maybe it doesn't help that he should have been killed. It doesn't help, T'Challa probably should have gotten killed, and nonetheless.
Well, I mean, not for the sake of the movie, but throw someone off a waterfall, they usually don't live.
Well, not even that. Whatever. I don't care what. These are superhero movies. We'll stretch it, but like, Killmonger had him dead to rights, and then Zuri stopped it. Kind of breaking all the rules of it all. Again, the way I can step back from that is, you shouldn't let fights to the death decide, because Killmonger would have been a horrible ruler, or maybe not. Because one of the big reactions to this film was #Killmonger was right. Well, was he though? What do you think?
So this is what I will say. I think there is a common phenomenon where people will conflate legitimate grievance with the goals that same person has. I think with a good villain, there's always a sympathetic grievance they have. They have something in their backstory. They have something they are against. They have something that put them on this path that is something that we can find sympathetic, that we can relate to in some way. And Killmonger's grievance in this movie is powerful. It is emotional. It is sympathetic. It's the reason why he's a great villain. But people take that grievance and they take that association and that identification with that grievance, and they then identify entirely with the character and everything he's trying to do, rather than actually evaluate his actions that are coming out of that grievance. Just because you have a legitimate grievance, just because you have a sympathetic grievance, does not mean that your goals are the right goals to address that. So no, he was not right.
No, and ultimately, like, the ends don't justify the means in any case. Like, even if he says that these are the reasons, we can get into it. Yeah. Black people being oppressed around the world, when there is this, rich, advanced African nation that could have helped them out, and maybe we wouldn't have had to go through all of this. Maybe your neighbors wouldn't have been enslaved if you would have done something. That's a great point. Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Deciding that you're going to send weapons around the world to kill everyone and conquer them. No, that's not right. That is wrong. That is a villain thing. And it feeds into what we were discussing earlier, that like ultimately Killmonger doesn't care about any of those other things. Killmonger cares about his own pain, and he wants to lash out. That's just, and the movie itself, like, talks about that like he's just doing his CIA training. He's just trying to stabilize them. He's in there destroying the heart-shaped herb, throwing out their traditions. As soon as Black Panther says that, hey, this challenge isn't over, I never yielded, he's like, nah, we're done with that stuff. We ain't doing no challenges anymore, because he's not interested in the tradition. He's not interested in freeing the black people around the world. He's interested in taking over.
Right, exactly. And, the movie is not on Killmonger's side of this argument. It's just that what people did pick up on is the movie was against T'Challa's side of the argument, because the person the movie's on the side of is Nakia. Nakia's the one.
Right. Nakia was right. Hashtag Nakia was right.
Right. She's the one that was espousing from the moment where we see her, which is 5 minutes into the movie, that what they should be doing is reaching out and helping. Because they have the power, they have the money, they have the technology to do that.
Yeah, and that is the conflict that T'Challa is going through. And unfortunately for him, it's a very internal conflict in which the things he believed weren't quite right. Although, he's leaning, he's listening. And then it's closer to the villain. And the villain is just so charismatic that, it's like, man, poor dude. Like, it's hard to be like, I should want to do the right thing and help people. And I just need to overthrow some tradition when, like, Michael B. Jordan is setting fire to the screen all around you. Yeah. And it's just like, that's it. Like, again, for this movie, it works really well. Future movies are going to have to, help them out, because otherwise then you're like, you're Michael Keaton saying, I don't want to be Batman anymore because nobody cares about me.
Yeah. So instead he becomes a really great villain. So
years later, after doing a movie about, being a superhero that everybody thought was amazing and I thought was garbage. Anyway, I'm not talking about Spider-Man. So no, Killmonger was not right. Nakia was right. That's really easy. Ding, another win for us.
Well, do you want to take a break and come back with our big idea, or do you have more to say about Black Panther specifically?
I do have more to say about Black Panther, which we will discuss in our big idea.
Your Highness, the new king is a U.S. The new king.
You cannot talk. One more word, and I will feed you to my children. I'm kidding. We are vegetarians.
And we're back, and we're talking about this week's big idea. So our big idea this week is, it's basically going to be a discussion of diversity in the Marvel Universe, in the MCU. Of course, Black Panther is the perfect movie to touch upon that, but Thor Ragnarok works really well there because it has a director, Taika Waititi, who is of Maoran descent. It has Tessa Thompson in a prominent, supporting role as Valkyrie, a character that in the comics is, of course, white. It has Idris Elba, who in the comics plays Heimdall, who in the comics is white.
Actually, in the comics was white. They've actually adapted his look to the more prominent feature. And this also comes, a film off of Spider-Man: Homecoming, which, as we discussed last week, is a diverse cast of New York that might even resemble New York.
Yeah. So Andy, where do you want to begin this discussion? Because this one's a bit more free form. It's not quite as targeted as some of our others.
Yeah, I don't have like a simple take to take down. Is that what you're getting at? And it should also know, off the top, no better people to be talking about the importance of diversity than you or I, because it still should be talked about, and we're the ones hosting this show. Diversity is important, obviously. And, you and I can't talk to what it feels like to finally, watch a movie and see a representation that looks like you on the screen and the power that can have. But that is a thing. Like, what we get as white guys is we get to get niche, right? Yeah. It's like, we got to be like, oh, that guy wears a shirt like I did, or he likes the same music as I do, or likes the same things, and get that charge. Meanwhile, there's billions of people out there of these big action movies, these big superhero movies could be like, I'm kind of like Doctor Strange's sidekick, I'm kind of like, Tony Stark's best friend. For a long time they get nothing. And now, especially with Black Panther, a whole movie with two white dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Black Panther has two white dudes. It has Martin Freeman as the random CIA guy who's on their side, which frankly was a role that I don't think the movie needed. And then
what they required was an outsider, right? They need the outsider so that somebody can describe Wakanda to them in a way that you can't describe to other people that Wakandan. They didn't necessarily need to be a white dude, though. Continue.
Yeah, they needed an outsider who could say, "You guys have hover bikes." That's what they needed. But yeah, and then they had Claw, who of course is a villain, and in that role, I think was actually more necessary. Having a villainous white guy, I think, was actually a good role for this movie.
Actually, another white role they have that they use really well for that is stuffy white lady in the museum.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah. Where she's white splaining the various African artifacts, Michael B. Jordan. Yeah, no, that's great.
And then of course she dies because she's sipping her coffee while having security look at the guy. Although he was super villain. But just like that movie and its success, and we'll get to its success actually. But just like how it diversity helps is like that movie. Not just all cast, black director. They made sure to get black casting directors, and I think the score and the art, costume design, like they went all in. And it's just like, and as we discussed earlier, what that does is not only create that the good feeling of diversity and what that can do for people, but also it creates a unique film. It's 18 movies in, and we get something that just feels like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. When you actually engage in diversity, you can tell different stories because people from different backgrounds have different stories. And it seems simple to say, but it's true. To talk about a movie other than Black Panther for just a brief moment. So in Thor Ragnarok, one of the best characters is Korg. And he's actually voiced by Taika Waititi. And one of the most unique things about Korg is his voice. The fact he's very kind of like soft, has a soft spoken, has kind of a high pitched voice, but he's this big rock monster. Taika based that off of the way that Polynesian bouncers talk, which is this little random fact, but it speaks to a diversity of experience that you wouldn't have. If this was a white guy directing the movie, the big rock monster would have a gravelly voice. But the fun of that character is in that voice. There's something new about that. So when you have people from different backgrounds, when you put them in the movie, they can tell you things, they can have experiences that you don't see otherwise.
Yeah, and we don't want to go too far in giving Marvel a ton of credit for this because
they're doing better recently.
Let's give them the nod now. They're getting there, right? But it did take like 16 movies before you got more than just Cap and Iron Man sidekicks, right? Or Nick Fury, a quick little role,
right?
And that wasn't by accident. That wasn't just because, and obviously they are working from source material that isn't particularly diverse in the first place, but it was also due to the ideas of the person who owned Marvel. And it should be clear that I'm not talking about Disney. I'm not talking about Kevin Feige. I believe it's Ike Perlmutter or some awful person. Just didn't believe that this would work. And just the prevailing Hollywood idea that you can't do that. You can't have your big action blockbusters starring, non-white people because
non-white men specifically. Yes. Because let's be honest, one of the ways they're still failing is we have yet to get that female-led superhero movie. And we're getting it. We're getting it in, I believe, February of next year. But that's going to be 22 movies in.
Yeah. It's just that they won't sell. They won't. No, not even just that they won't sell in America. Always the easy one, to let themselves off the hook is they won't sell internationally. Nobody in Europe, nowhere in China wants to see it unless maybe it's Will Smith. Maybe it will start like The Rock will be in a bit, but nobody goes to those movies other than instead of asking, was there like a big data set to pull from of all these movies starring non-white people that you poured millions of dollars into? And the answer is no. So the biggest thing that the diversity has shown that we needed to talk about is Black Panther made all the money. It made so much money, which shows that, forget your, liberal values that you and I share, forget the unique storytelling opportunities, forget, the feeling that it gives when somebody sees somebody like themselves, or even young white children seeing non-white people and being able to think they're awesome. You do this because there's so much money to be made.
Well, that's why Marvel does it. And, one interesting thing about the box office is I think traditionally in a box office, it'll break down where about 40% of the box office take will be domestic, as in the US, and 60% will be overseas. Now, I think Black Panther flipped that. I think 60% was domestic, if not more, and 40 was overseas. So they were right. It did not do quite as well internationally, but that was because it did so well domestically. It did better domestically than they could possibly imagine. To be fair, it did really well internationally. I'm not trying to say it didn't, but but the way they didn't understand this was the fact that this became a cultural phenomenon. People had to see this movie. And again, this made so much money domestically. I think it's third all time domestically. It might be fourth. It's third or fourth.
It's managed to outpace every Marvel movie that had existed to that point. This guy, Black Panther, a character who never sold really well, has never had a huge cachet. Even when they released the movie and all the success, even his current comics don't sell like other ones. But yeah, it's because it's they made a black movie. Finally, they're making a black movie, action blockbuster with filled with great black actors, black director, and they supported that because there really ain't much of it. And I gotta make it clear, this isn't just this. Daniel Kaluuya, Get Out made so much money. There's
Crazy Rich Asians is right now the number one movie, to go diverse in another way, but these again, these movies make money.
Yeah. So instead of trying to toss out Wonder Man as the 7th or 10th or 15th best, interesting white hero that they can throw a movie at. Yeah, let's look at some new ones, some new stories, some new characters. You can get people, actors, some really great ones who you haven't used yet. And DC, the one good thing they ever did was they got to jump on finally making one starring a woman, and that became a cultural phenomenon. Now, in some respects, it Wonder Woman should have always been the first one because she's the biggest
seriously. But
and as bad as it was that it took so long for Wonder Woman, in many ways I'm grateful it did, because any Wonder Woman that had come before that movie would have sucked. And I think you could argue similarly for Black Panther. Black Panther would not have been as good until this moment. It just sucked that it had to take that long to get to that moment. But until we had Ryan Coogler, and all of the cachet that Marvel had built in, and they just went all in. So I mean, I don't want to give them too much congratulations for taking this long, but once they finally did it, man, they did it. They did not dip their toes in. They went all in.
Right. I mean, and I think the other reason why Black Panther was such a phenomenon was because this wasn't it's oh, well, we're just going to throw a little bit of money at the black superhero movie. No, man, they had a budget here commensurate with their other budgets, probably a little more than some of the other standalones. It's not like an Avengers budget, but this is, you get a movie that's going to be one of the biggest budget movies of the year. Not like an independent movie, but one of the biggest budget movies of the year. It's going to be under the premier studio that is making the biggest hits right now, and it's going to be your movie. And of course it's going to be a cultural phenomenon. And one of the interesting things is the fact that it's obvious that Marvel did not think it would be as big as it is. And you can tell that because in Infinity War, they Wakanda, the battle's there, but they don't really get the nods to it that you would expect after that movie made as much as it made.
Yeah, you always wonder if they should have gone into reshoots. It's more Black Panther, please. But some I
kind of feel like they may have.
That point. I will say, maybe it's best that they're leaving the greater Black Panther story for Ryan Coogler to tell than what it is.
That also might be true.
But look, but the thing you couldn't count on this success, even if you thought it was going to be a huge success. The idea that like this would do more than Avengers did is insane. Like,
yeah,
people were like starting to predict that. It's like, let's calm down. Like, there's a lot of hype for this movie, but like, we should be talking about like Captain America, even like Winter Soldier type numbers, but yeah, like this was so big, and it's just that there's many great reasons why you should make your movies more diverse, and we talked about that. But now, and one of the reasons is to make money, and that's awesome. And that's one of the reasons why, as the box office numbers were coming in, like people were rooting for it. People were saying, go see this movie in a way that like, why are we rooting for like Disney to make more money? It's not about that. It's about that the only way we are going to get a Cineplex with different voices and different faces is if this one did well. It had to not just make a little bit of money, but when it started making all the money, we're gonna see more.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. You are a bigger comics fan than I am. We're talking about diversity, and we're talking about how Marvel can kind of increase that like they have been. There's one name that leaps to my mind, but are there any good, diverse superheroes that you would like to see Marvel bring to the big screen in the future? The one that leaps to my mind is Kamala.
Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel?
Yeah.
That's going to happen. Obviously, there's nothing been announced. There's nothing been firm. Kevin Feige's kind of hinted at it. Okay. But just as an example of why I think that's going to happen is, for one, she has been a huge success in comics.
Yeah.
Her title sells really well. It has a bunch of fans. She is a character now that they will stick in many other books to help, bring it in. Avengers has an accompanying cartoon. It was started off as like Avengers Assemble, like they relaunched an earlier one, and then they kind of change the title every year. It just to go with storylines, kind of like what they do with the movies, right? Everything has a subtitle now. All they've ever featured in that cartoon is characters from the movie universe. That was kind of the mandate when they relaunched this cartoon, was to try and give kids, audiences that are into that, they're going to that. The most recent season finally brought in all these newer characters that are in the universe. They got Ant-Man, they got Black Panther. They put in Captain Marvel, who will be in the next movie.
Right.
The only character, and they added Ms. Marvel. She is the only character in that universe that has been a headlining Avenger who is not in the movie universe. That's telling. They make they have a costume of her for sale on the Disney Store website anyway. Unfortunately, I couldn't go here because my son wanted parts of it to dress up as himself. So yes, I believe they will make a Kamala Khan movie in the next 3 to 4 years, just based on every way they're positioning it, and they should, because it will sell so well to to everybody. But it is huge amongst kids. She is my son's favorite character, so that's one. But actually, in the comics, they have made efforts to be more diverse. Sam Wilson was Captain America for a while. Miles Morales, who is getting a movie, was the new Spider-Man, and he is a character that was so popular that when they decided to finally cancel the entire universe that he existed in because it had run his course.
They saved him.
They kept him because he's making money, and they had a black girl as the new Iron Man.
Riri, who's being written by a fellow U Chicago alum, Eve Ewing, right now. So.
Again, my son loves that. But my son's favorite comic book characters are Kamala Khan, Miles Morales, Sam Alexander, a Hispanic Caucasian Nova. Which if they make a Nova movie, please don't make it the other guy. And Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, who's a 9-year-old black girl, it's a title that hasn't sold well in single issues from every indication I get, but it sounds like it does really well at Scholastic, which is
interesting.
And those are the audiences that Marvel can start to see and pick up on and make that cash.
Yeah, so it seems like they have a bench where maybe they start pulling some of these characters into phase 4 because they're going to need new heroes. They're going to need to launch new titles because a lot of the ones they have now are not going to be continuing.
No. And why is that? Is that because of the next big movie you're thinking of?
Yeah, because next week we are talking about Avengers Infinity War. It will be the end of our podcasting line we might have one bonus episode afterwards. But for the summer, this is going to be the end of us talking about one or two specific movies. And it's wrapping it up. Like we said, we didn't name the podcast what we named it because we wanted to lead up to Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we might drop an episode on that when it's actually out on home video. But
so that'll be later this week, hopefully, unless the massive editing that I want to do to it pushes it back. But look for that, and you can do that on our website at infinitystonepodcast.wordpress.com. You can find us on YouTube, subscribe to the various podcatchers, follow us on Twitter
at pod_infinity.
And
we know.
Yeah. I mean, right there, like this is a joke I didn't get in last week, but the whole superhero fatigue. If superhero fatigue were a real thing, nobody would be paying those guys to write all those articles about superhero fatigue, and B, our Twitter handle wouldn't suck so bad because people wouldn't have taken every iteration of anything that would have been better. So follow us there, and I'm looking forward to the big shebang at the end, Infinity War next week.
So let's roll credits.
The rainbow bridge of Asgard, where the booming heavens roar, you'll behold in breathless wonder the God of thunder, mighty Thor.
So the question is, if Wakanda doesn't participate in trade, how are they such an advanced economy? Like, how does a resource-based economy become rich if they never sell their product? I don't know. It's probably best not to think about these things,
Dad?
Yeah.
Me and Coogler have a question for you.
Oh, what's that?
Wow!